Welcome to English 3 months. Ready to level up your English? Let's get started. The President of the United States made a big announcement. He said the country would start new taxes on things coming from other countries. These special taxes are often called tariffs. This plan was named reciprocal tariffs. Reciprocal means that the tax amount might be similar to taxes other countries put on American goods. The President said this plan would begin very quickly on the next day. This news came as a big surprise. Too many people around the world. It caused a large shock. Many countries trade goods with the United States. They buy things from America, and America buys things from them. These new taxes would change the cost of many products. This plan was a very different way for the United States to handle trade. Trade is the buying and selling of goods between countries. For many years, the rules for trade between countries try to make buying and selling easier. These new tariffs seemed to make it harder, people thought. This was a huge change in how the United States worked with other nations on trade. Some said it was the most important change to world trade rules since the end of World War II. That war ended a long time ago. Over 70 years before this announcement, after that war, countries tried to lower taxes on trade to help everyone grow. This new plan seemed to go in the opposite direction. It looked like America wanted to protect its own companies more. The announcement marked the start of a very new time for international business and relationships between countries. 2. Markets go down. After the President's big news about new taxes, leaders in other countries reacted very fast. The plan was a huge change for world trade. Maybe the biggest change since the Second World War. Some leaders wanted to talk with the United States government. They hoped to make deals and avoid the new taxes on their country's goods, but other leaders were angry and spoke about retaliating. This meant they might create their own taxes on American products coming into their countries. The situation was confusing. Would countries negotiate, or would this start a trade fight? The world watched and waited anxiously. The news hit the world's financial markets immediately and hard. It was like a wrecking ball crashing through stock markets, where people buy and sell parts of companies started falling sharply across the globe. Prices for shares in many big companies dropped very quickly. People who invest money became very scared about losing money. Important market lists, called indices, showed large losses in America. The S&P 500 index fell. London's FTSE 100 index went down too. In Asia, Japan's Nikkei 225 index dropped significantly. Germany's DAX index also fell fast. The speed of the fall was shocking. So much value disappeared in a short time, with markets falling like this. People everywhere started to worry more about the economy. They worried about businesses losing money, maybe having to close down factories or shops. They worried about ordinary people losing their jobs. A very big fear started to grow. The possibility of a global recession. A recession is a difficult time when the economy shrinks instead of growing. Trade between countries slows down. Companies make less money, and it becomes harder for people to find or keep work. The idea that these new taxes could cause such a serious problem all around the world felt very real. People became nervous about what the future would bring. Business owners and important company leaders in the United States also watched the markets fall. They understood that these new taxes could create big problems for their businesses. Buying materials from other countries or selling American products overseas could become much more expensive and difficult. Over the next few days, many powerful business people and investors contacted the government. They strongly asked the president and his team to rethink the plan. They put pressure on the administration because they were very worried about the falling markets and the increasing risk of a recession. They urgently asked the president to stop the tariffs before more damage happened to the economy. 3. A big surprise stop. The world was watching the new trade taxes closely. Markets were falling, and leaders were worried. Then something unexpected happened. Just hours after the highest tariff started on April 9th, President Trump announced a sudden stop. He called it a 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs. This news came as a big surprise to many people around the world. It changed the situation very quickly. This pause was planned to last for 90 days. During this time, the United States would talk with other countries. For most nations, the new high taxes were stopped. Instead, they would face a much lower tariff of only 10%. While negotiations happened, government officials explained the reason for this pause. They said that more than 75 countries had contacted the U.S. government. These countries wanted to discuss trade and make deals. The pause was seen as a chance for these talks. But the pause was not for everyone. There was a very important exception. China. China is a huge economy, the second largest in the world. For goods coming from China, the tariffs did not stop. In fact, they increased significantly. The tax rate on Chinese goods jumped to 125%. This was a massive increase. The administration said this was because China had chosen to retaliate, meaning they fought back against the earlier U.S. tariffs. Officials stated that countries which did not retaliate were being rewarded with the pause and the lower 10% tax. China, however, was facing a much tougher situation. The reaction in the financial markets was immediate and strong after several days of sharp drops. Markets suddenly jumped up. The Dow Jones Industrial Average in the United States climbed more than 2,000 points very quickly. This big jump showed that investors and businesses felt a sense of relief. The pause reduced the immediate fear of a wider global trade war. It felt like a step back from a very dangerous situation for many countries. However, the high tariffs on China meant the conflict with that country was getting much worse. The pause created temporary relief, but also left many questions about what would happen after the 90 days ended for helping U.S. factory. Why did the president want these new taxes called tariffs? A very important reason was to help factories in the United States. He wanted American companies to make more things again. This is called manufacturing. Helping manufacturing was a key promise. He wanted to bring back jobs in this area. Many years ago, America had many more factory jobs, making things like cars, steel, and machines. But things change over time. Since the year 1979, the country lost a lot of these jobs. More than 6 million manufacturing jobs disappeared. The president thought this was bad for the country and wanted to change it. He believed that tariffs were the answer. His idea was simple. Tariffs make products from other countries more expensive to buy in the U.S. Foreign goods cost more money, and American people and companies might choose to buy things made in America instead. This could help American factories sell more of their own products. When local companies sell more, they often need more workers. This could create more jobs for American people right here in the U.S. The president often talked about China when discussing this problem. He saw the big growth of factories in China as a major reason why the U.S. lost its own manufacturing jobs, as China produced more and more goods cheaply. He felt that American factories closed down or moved away. He remembered older times when American industries like making steel and building cars were very strong. He hoped his tariff plan could help bring back some of that past strength, perhaps in new ways for today's world, making things in America again was a central part of his vision for the economy and for American workers. But bringing back factory jobs is not a simple task. Once these types of jobs leave a country, history shows it is very hard to get them back again. Another challenge is finding enough people who want to do the work or have the right skills, even before the tariffs. There were many empty jobs in manufacturing. Some reports said there were about 500,000 factory jobs that companies could not find workers for. This made some people ask an important question. Even if tariffs help create new factory jobs, are there enough workers in America ready and able to take them? It is a big question with no easy answer. Despite these challenges, the main goal of the tariffs remained clear: help American factories grow stronger, open their doors again, and hire more people. This was presented as a way to rebuild American industry. 5. Changing trade numbers. Another important reason for President Trump's tariffs was about trade numbers between countries. He wanted to fix trade deficits. Trade deficit is easy to understand. It happens when one country buys more products from another country than it sells to that country over a period of time. Imagine you buy your food every week from the grocery store. You buy a lot from the store, but the store probably buys nothing from you. You have a trade deficit with the grocery store. It is similar for countries. For example, the United States drinks a lot of coffee but does not grow much coffee. So, it imports a lot of coffee from places like South America. This creates a trade deficit in coffee because the US buys much more than it sells. The United States has trade deficits with many countries, but the biggest one by far is with China. This deficit grew very large over many years. America bought huge amounts of goods made in China, like computers, phones, toys, and clothes. These goods often cost less money for American shoppers. China sold goods worth hundreds of billions of dollars to the US every year. At the same time, the United States sold goods to China, like farm products and airplanes, but the amount was much, much smaller. This created a big imbalance in trade between the two countries. President Trump saw this large trade deficit as a very bad thing for America. He often said that a trade deficit means the US is losing money and important factory jobs, while China is winning. He wanted to change this situation completely. His goal was to make trade balanced, meaning countries buy and sell similar amounts from each other, or he wanted trade deals that helped America more than the other country. This strong focus on trade deficits, especially the huge one with China, led to serious problems. Before the 90-day pause, the US and China started a trade fight using tariffs. This fight quickly got bigger and more serious. Soon after President Trump took office, the US put tariffs on many Chinese goods coming into the country. China quickly answered back. It put its own tariffs on American goods going to China. The US government then increased its tariffs on Chinese goods again, making them even higher. China responded once more, raising its tariffs too. It was like a fight where each side hit back harder. Tariffs got very high very fast. For some Chinese products arriving in the US, the price doubled just because of these new taxes. This made many businesses and people very worried about rising costs and economic problems. Everyone wondered when this tariff fight would stop and how bad it could get. This difficult and tense situation was happening right before the president announced the surprise pause for most countries. 6. More money, more talks. Tariffs have other goals too. One important goal is to raise money for the government. This money is called revenue. The government hoped this tariff money could help pay for other plans, like tax cuts. Officials talked about needing this revenue to help with the country's growing debt. They also wanted to lower the tax that companies pay. The idea was that companies would then have more money to build factories or hire more American workers. There were also ideas to lower taxes for people, like income taxes, or maybe stop taxing money earned from tips. But using tariffs to get money can be difficult. Tariffs are a tax on imported goods. If these goods become very expensive because of the tariffs, people might buy fewer of them. When people buy fewer imported goods, the government collects less tax money, so the money from tariffs might not be a steady or reliable source of income over time. It can go up and down. It is also important to understand who pays the tariff tax when goods arrive in the United States from another country. The company that brings them in, called the importer, pays the tax first. For example, imagine a smartphone arrives at the border and it is worth $100. If there is a 50% tariff, the importer has to pay an extra $50 to the government. But the importer usually adds this extra cost to the price of the smartphone. Studies show that importers often pass most or all of the tariff cost to the shops and then to the shoppers. So, in the end, tariffs usually mean higher prices for consumers, the people who buy the products. Finally, tariffs were not just about money or helping factories. President Trump also used tariffs as a tool in discussions with other countries. This is part of diplomacy. He used the idea of adding tariffs or removing them to push countries like Mexico or China during negotiations. These talks were sometimes about trade, but sometimes they were about other difficult subjects, like immigration or stopping illegal drugs. The 90-day pause in tariffs for many countries showed this strategy. Officials said that more than 75 countries contacted the U.S. to talk and make deals using tariffs. This way gave the U.S. government something extra to use when trying to get agreements or concessions from other nations. 7. Old problems, new fears. Using tariffs or taxes on goods from other countries has a long history. Sometimes this history shows us that tariffs can be dangerous. A famous example is the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act in the United States. This happened in 1930. The government added high tariffs on many goods coming from other countries. They hoped to collect more money for the government, but the result was not good. These tariffs made a very bad time, called the Great Depression, even worse. Many countries stopped trading with each other as much. This hurt economies everywhere. Today, many people who study the economy look back at Smoot-Hawley. They use it as a lesson. They worry that the new tariffs announced by President Trump could cause similar big problems. They fear these new taxes could hurt the economy in the U.S. and around the world. This is because the world has worked differently. For a long time after the big war called World War II ended, many countries decided to lower tariffs. For many decades, taxes on imported goods were generally low. The idea was simple. If countries trade goods easily with each other, they are less likely to fight. This system seemed to work. Trade between countries grew a lot. This helped many economies grow stronger. It was a long period of countries working together more through trade. President Trump's plan for higher tariffs is a very big change from this long time of lower taxes on trade. It changes the way the U.S. trades with other nations. This change creates worries about the future. What could happen if these tariffs cause problems like they did in the past? Some experts fear the worst result could be a global recession. A recession is a time when business activity slows down and many people lose jobs. If countries stop trading easily, it could make economies everywhere weaker. It might also lead to less stability and cooperation between countries around the world. The problems of the past create new fears for today. So the big tariffs are stopped for 90 days for most countries during this time. These countries will pay a lower tax of 10% on their goods, but this pause is not for China. The tax on Chinese goods is now much higher at 125%. Everyone is asking what will happen next. What comes after these 90 days are finished? President Trump hopes this time will lead to better trade deals for the United States. He wants the American economy to become stronger. His team says this plan is working. They announced that leaders from more than 75 countries called the U.S. These countries want to talk and make deals. The government says this shows their plan is strong. They say countries that did not fight back against the first tariffs are now getting this chance to talk. The Treasury Secretary is leading many of these important talks, but many people are still worried. The future is not clear. Even though the pause made markets happy for a short time, many experts fear problems. They worry that these trade plans could still hurt the U.S. and world economies. Some say the quick changes in policy make it hard for businesses to plan. They think the relief might not last long. Will stopping the tariffs for a short time fix the problems? Or are bigger problems still coming? The U.S. government says the high tax on China is needed. They say China has not been fair in trade for many years. Officials explain that China sells much more to the U.S. than the U.S. sells to China. They see this as a big problem that needs to be fixed by putting a very high tax only on China. They want to pressure China to change its ways. Some officials even say the trade fight is now China against the rest of the world, because so many other countries are talking with the U.S. The president's team believes their actions are brave and smart. They think using tariffs and then pausing them gives the U.S. power in talks. They say they were ready for other countries to react, and China reacted strongly. So China faces the high tax. Other countries did not react strongly, so they get the pause and lower tax. The government says it needs the 90 days because so many countries want to talk. They promise to work seriously on new deals during this time. Everyone is watching closely. Will this plan bring the good results the president wants, or will the worries of the economists come true? What do you think will happen when the 90 days end? This really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.